In this video, we're going to take a look at how to take a plane model that you have and convert it into an interactable plane. As you can see right now, it is completely walk-through. You can't interact with it or anything. And by the end of this video, we'll be able to fly it around. So first things first, you're going to want to find the PolyPerfect Low Poly Warpack Prefabs folder. And within it, you'll find a Vehicles folder, and within that, Abstracts. And what you want from here is the rideable_plane prefab, and just drag that into the scene. You'll see a few trails appear. Those will become more relevant later on. But for now, just drag your plane model into the rideable plane prefab and zero out its transforms. And if we just hit play now, you'll see that the plane drops through the world, and that's because there is no colliders on it. However, it automatically had a rigid body attached, and that's because this rideable plane prefab already has a ton of stuff on it, such as the rigid body, as well as this plane movement script, and this is where all of the magic is going to happen, but thankfully the vast majority of it is already set up automatically thanks to that prefab. But before we add anything else, we want to make sure that we don't overwrite any of the things in the rideable plane prefab, so we will instead create our own prefab variant of it. So find a folder that you want. In this case, I've just made an empty prefabs folder, and I'm just going to drag the rideable plane into there and say create prefab variant. This will make it so that if you make any changes to the rideable plane prefab, it will update this as well as the rest of the planes, but if you change this by itself, it won't affect any of the other planes. And so I will go ahead and rename it first. We'll just call this my plane for now, and rename it in the scene as well for giggles. And just to prove that there is this hierarchy of variants, if you double click on the plane, you can then hit open again, and now you see you're in the rideable plane prefab again, and now you're in the rideable prefab. And you get a nice trail of breadcrumbs up here that lets you know where you are within that. So now that we've created the prefab, we can begin adding colliders and such to it. So let's start that now. I'll use Alt-Shift-N to create an empty child and call this colliders. And then another Alt-Shift-N to create a wing collider. And this is just going to have a box collider attached to it. And let's move it around a bit, scaling it so that it matches the wings. It doesn't need to be super accurate. The reason that we are using box colliders instead of, say, a mesh collider is that non-convex mesh colliders do not work with dynamic objects. So we instead need to use these estimates or use a more direct means of creating convex holes, but that gets pretty complicated. So we're just going to stick with this simple approach for now. Just creating some boxes around where we think impacts might occur to the plane. That's looking good. We'll call this a stabilizer collider. And now one for the body. This one's going to be a capsule collider. All right, I think that's good enough for now, at least for demonstration purposes. So now that we have those colliders attached, if we hit play, you'll see it does not fall through the ground. However, we cannot move at the moment, and that is because we need some wheel colliders as well as a propeller in order to give it some forward momentum. So for that, there are a couple components already created that we can simply drag on. Again, in the Vehicles folder within the Low Poly Warpack Prefabs, you'll find a Components folder. And in here, we have plane wheel M and plane wheel S, of course, for medium and small wheels. I'm going to go ahead and use some medium wheels for the front and a small wheel for the back. So I will drag this into here, have it be a child of the Messerschmitt right wheel and one of the left wheel as well. However, I am going to change around the parenting of this a little bit, where I want the Messerschmitt-left wheel to be a child of the plane wheel. However, this will cause an issue if I just try and do it by itself. You'll see we need to open the prefab in order to do this. So I'm going to first apply everything that we've done so far by using overrides, apply all, then open the prefab. And now looking at the Messerschmitt, we should be able to reorder this, make that a child of that, and similarly unparent, and then reparent. And now, as you can see, we have the wheel with the wheel colliders already attached, and the child of them is the actual visual for the wheel. Similarly, we want the plane wheel S to be a child of the Messerschmitt back wheel. I'd do it as a child to start off with just so that it's in the right position, then unparent it, and reparent it the other way around. And as you'll see, plane wheel S already matches that pretty accurately. So with that, it should look a bit more realistic if we save that and hop back into the scene. And sure enough, it is laying down and I can hop in, but I cannot move yet. In order to get it to move, you have to open up the plane movement script here. In order to make it easier to pick out which wheels are correct, let's hop back into the prefab itself. Say 3 wheels, plane wheel M, the other plane wheel M, and plane wheel S. S is of course at the back, so that one's going to be used for steering, and all of them can be used for brakes. And with the wheels taken care of, we can go ahead and assign the propeller. So if I go ahead and say propeller is 1, and just find the propeller there, we should get some behavior now if we hop into play mode. And sure enough, we have movement and can control the plane. However, it's handling a little weird now. And also there's a secondary trail that we will have to remove. But even just by itself, this is already passable and is a controllable plane. However, as I mentioned previously, the plane script is physics-based, so it needs to know where the wings are, where the stabilizers are, and such. So if we hop back into the prefab, you'll notice a thing called wing references here. And then you see aileron L, aileron R. These are placed in locations that roughly correspond to where they would be, except for, as you can see, the ailerons do not quite match up with the back end of the wing as they should. So what you'll want to do is grab each of them and move it so that they correspond with the actual locations. So the wings are going to go on the front end of the wings. The stabilizers here are the front end of the stabilizers in the back. The elevators are, of course, the back ends of the stabilizers. Stabilizer V, we'll move a bit closer there towards the front end of the vertical fin. Rudder is going to be on the back end of the vertical fin. Body V and body H are just used for estimating the drag that the body of the plane provides. So I'm going to grab those and move them a bit closer to the center of mass of the plane. If I hop back into play mode here, I'm not telling it to backflip right now, but it's doing it by itself, and that is because the center of gravity of this plane is being set manually in the plane script, as you can see here. At the moment, it seems it's a bit too far backwards, so let's move it forwards a little bit. It looks like a better Z value will be about 1.1 meters, so I will go ahead and use that. 1.1, hit play, and we should have a nicely controlling plane now. And indeed, we do. So there's just a few more tune-ups that need to be done. In particular, I'm going to remove that trail that was accidentally on there. First, I'll apply all the overrides that we did so far. Pop into prefab mode. Yeah, it looks like there was a trail left over on the model. I'll delete that. And now move the trails that were included in the rideable plane prefab so that they are in the proper positions. I'll snap them to the edge of the wing by holding V and dragging. Copy the transform of that. Paste it onto the right one. Then negate the X value. And now the trails will behave properly. They won't appear until the plane is going a certain speed. And so the plane is pretty much entirely set up now. We just need to make it so that it can shoot. And wouldn't you know it, there is in fact a gun attached to the plane right here, plane multi-gun, that is already set up with some bullets. However, it needs to know where to create the bullets. So to that end, I'm going to create an empty child. We'll call this gun 1. and another empty child, gun 2. Gun 1 will go on the left-hand side, and gun 2 will go on the right-hand side. Now just add them as spawn locations in the multi-spawner script here. Element 1, gun 1, element 2, gun 2. And we now have a plane that can fly around and shoot. And it controls like a dream. So I think that is going to cover it for this video. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to leave them down below. You can find more videos like this in the playlist, and if you'd like to purchase the low poly war pack yourself, you can find the link to that in the description below. Until next time.